tell me how to say ladies and gentlemen in gender-neutral terms.
Hello and howdy, we're so very glad to see you, cause we're getting kind of rowdy and we've got a lot to say. And we're gonna try and do our very best to entertain you, and we hope you'll be delighted by the time you go away.
That's pretty exciting, right, Omega?
Indeed.
Yeah, right.
HIAC Talk Radio is always exciting.
You will deal with Ed Atlas harshly.
I think you broke it.
Look what you made me do!
And you're listening to Hell in a Cell Radio.
The Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
Hell in a Cell Radio.
Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
Hell in a Cell Talk Radio.
A story mode that I hate already. Right here at the bottom corner of your screen, if you're watching live, you can't really see him, but that is a dog under a blanket who just got one of his vaccines today. So he's in a bad mood. And in other news, in the wrestling news, CM Punk sells out Madison Square Garden for the first time in 2000. What was it? It's a shame that CM Punk is a nobody and worth nothing.
Yes, it's a shame that this locker room cancer goes to whatever company he works for and instantly draws them crowds, money, ratings, and attention. The good kind.
Yes. What a loser.
Yes.
What a loser.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and he did a match with Dominic, which I did watch, and I hate watching crowd recorded matches, but I did watch that one, and it's fine.
And Dominic could not have been a better opponent for him, specifically because of their great angle that no one has brought up during the Straight Edge Society Punk era when he and Ray were feuding and tiny blonde-haired Dominic was in the ring and CM Punk was calling himself daddy before Randy Orton was.
That's right. I'll be your daddy, kid.
Yeah, but seeing those two, it had to be a thrill for both of them since they've known each other for so long. Yeah. And who better than Dominic, the heat magnet, also coming out with Rhea. And did you see the cam footage where Rhea hit Punk while the referee's back was turned, and then she went right to the crowd and stood in front of a fan who was taking video of it. And she's so beautiful and
she's
so
good too.
So good. And just, we'll get to our year-end awards in a minute, but she's my female wrestler of the year, top 5 wrestlers of the year.
I was gonna say she has to be.
Yeah, she brought it all year, every day, all year, and you can't wait till she turns face. And I know we're getting up on a Rhea tangent. We're supposed to be talking about Punk, but
she does have a larger back.
Yes, to stand up. But Punk coming out, the cult of personality in Madison Square Garden, his first match there in 10 years, and they sell out because of him. He wasn't even the main event, but the fact that this was CM Punk's first match at a house show, it was absolutely amazing. And I know WWE, well, if they were smart, they would have, made it an event on the cock, but live crowds aren't what they used to, and this will help people get back in the seats, especially since the sale of the WWE to Endeavor. One of Endeavor's first edicts was they were going to cut down on house shows, so these moments are going to be few and far between in the coming years. So seeing your favorite stars live, specifically as CM Punk, is something worth doing and worth going to.
I can't imagine a world. By the way, Rita Repulsa. No, not Rita Repulsa. There's a name I haven't heard in a long time. I can't imagine at least one house show a week.
Yeah, like
that's
and that's
weird.
That's down from there used to be at least 2 house shows a week.
Yeah.
And it's so weird to say that when we talk so much, especially on this podcast in The Historian, about there's something happening every single day of the week. And wrestlers would wrestle every single day of the week and twice on Sundays. To now we're just one house show a week, and to some it will be too much.
There was a couple years there when I moved where I moved to, where I was going only to the live events, only to the house shows for a long time. Mostly because driving into Capital One Arena is a pain in the driving into DC. It came at a time. See, I saw when I see Paul McCartney 2014. It was 13 or 14. He had to start the show 2 hours later. Still played the full show, but for two reasons. One, it was raining and it was a stadium show. Two, it took an hour and a half for anybody to get to our parking spot. Like well into showtime. Excuse me.
Wow.
So for a little while there, I was staying outside the city and just going to the smaller arenas in Northern Virginia and seeing a bunch of house shows, which is just as fun. And that's when I came. That's well documented where I came into. Hell's that thing? One of those realizations about John Cena is not being for me, and seeing this little kid go insane and watching his father watching the little kid go nuts. And I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
It didn't take TV. I had to see it for myself. And it kind of was like, oh yeah, that's what that's for. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares if I hate him? And I don't, but yeah.
But you're not the target audience.
No, exactly. What's up, bud? Here, we're not playing a game. Join me while we chat.
I experienced something similar when I went with my mother to see the Taylor Swift movie, because she wanted to see what all the fuss was about. And in the movie theater, there was 5 tiny little girls that were running up and down the aisle or in the little concourse, jumping up and down for every song that she sang. Had I not gone to the movies, I never would have experienced that. And I was like, because I fell asleep and I'm watching, arms folded, legs crossed. I'm not the target audience, but these little girls, 5 of them, jumping up and down watching a movie of a concert, they're going to remember that for the rest of their lives. And that's who that was for. So you don't experience that unless you're there. One of the people we lost this year was superstar Billy Graham. And if you didn't see Billy Graham live, you can't experience how loud it was when he got his Tony Garea drop kicked him and he flew out of the ring. And all I remember, Dan, is beer, because it got so loud and people jumped up. It knocked an usher and he had a whole tray of beer, and it wasn't like holders for cups. It was a tray.
A tray of beer. Yeah.
And it all flew off. And I just remember just beer spilling down because it was so loud and people were jumping up and down for Tony Garea, of all people, just because he drop kicked superstar Billy Graham out of the ring during Superstar's 10 months as champion. Yes.
A couple of lists came out, one by ESPN and one by New York Times, New York Post. That's whatever. Wrestling moments and stars of the year, and Rhea Ripley. We were just talking about Rhea Ripley, Women's Wrestler of the Year, and I say,
yes,
Wrestler of the Year.
Yeah, there's an argument to be made. She's not mine, but I said she's in my top 5. And just point out, Dan, she was ESPN's Female Wrestler of the Year. The New York Post picked Becky Lynch, which is surprising to me, considering that she currently doesn't have the belt, while Rhea has had one the entire year. Well, since WrestleMania. And she took it off of Charlotte, which was my match of the year. Interesting that both New York Post and ESPN picked the same match of the year. But I digest. My match of the year was Rhea and Charlotte at a WrestleMania.
I mean, it's really hard to argue that one.
Yeah. And most of my match of the years, my top 5 were at that WrestleMania. My other one was the triple threat with Gunther, Sheamus, and Drew McIntyre.
Oh yeah. Rhea Ripley, sometimes known as Rhea Shipley. Shut up. I don't know what. Shut up about what?
Yeah.
I would say as far as women wrestling, and I here you go, female breakout wrestler of the year from New York Post for AEW was Julia Hart, and I'd say she'd be a second place, if not tied, for women's wrestler of the year. Jesus,
you can do it.
Christ, Julia Hart out of nowhere, and earned, in my opinion, rocketing to the top.
Yeah.
I try not to point out spelling mistakes very often, Ash, in the chat, because I got the point across. You got the point across. I knew what you meant. No big deal. That we're not on Twitter where you're trolling me and I have to point out and be a grammar Nazi. Oh my God, moment of the year was Sammy turning on the bloodline. I think we all expected that. Not that I'm not downplaying the moment, because the moment was great, but I think we all knew it was leading to that. So it was like, yes, finally.
Yeah. And see, my moment of the year also involves the bloodline, which was my group of the year. I know the ESPN or New York Post, one of them picked Judgment Day as their group of the year. But my moment of the year was when Jay turned on Roman. Because I didn't think. Yeah. So you
that
out the bloodline. Yeah. You out. Yeah. And I'm out too. Boom. That's what, because that I did not see. Yeah, you're right. Everyone saw Sammy's coming. And the fact that it happened, in Sammy's hometown or in Canada, that's, it was satisfying. You're actually giving the fans what they want, and we could all see it. And even when we all, we called it a year early, Sammy and Kevin winning the tag team championship. And it did it at WrestleMania, and still satisfying. Even though we all knew the end, we all saw it coming.
It was. I still think the bloodline is one of my favorite things that's happened in wrestling.
I agree. And now, Dan, just putting it out there, now that the lawsuit that MLW had against WWE has been settled, and now that Triple H is in charge, and can bring in new talent. I've always said can add to the bloodline. So
yes,
if they're any way, shape, or form, they can get Jacob Fatu into the blade. Jacob Fatu, for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, knows that's who I think should have been Solo's spot. And no knock against Solo, who's doing an awesome job. To a lot of people there, that was their male breakout star of the year. He's only lost once. And John Cena put him over big time. But Jacob Fatu should be a part of the bloodline sooner rather than later, now that the MLW lawsuit has been settled.
Yeah, agreed. Return of the year, real shocking, CM Punk.
Yeah.
And we already, talked about that the week before, and we talked about it a little bit at the beginning of the show because of the MSG house show that was huge. Yeah, no duh. No duh.
Interesting that both the New York Post and ESPN had the same tag team of the year.
Yeah.
It was undeniable, FTR. They
Yeah,
still
FTR.
remain. It's odd, the Usos, Sammy and Kevin had the biggest matches. But FTR remains still the single best tag team in all of wrestling. And the fact that ESPN and New York Post, and let's not forget, it seems so long ago, but the FTR Briscoe brothers matches were at the beginning of this year. And even the FTR Juice Robinson Jay White matches, which were amazing. Their 2 out of 3 fall match was in my top 5 matches of the year. So those guys still are the single best tag team of the year, despite not having been on television now for going on 2 months.
Yeah.
They remain the best tag team in wrestling.
Badass wants to put her vote in for R-Truth as Return of the Year. I love R-Truth. I don't care. I love that man so much. I love that man. So he deserves a job forever. And don't forget, and I can say this proudly, and it counts. Former NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
Yes. Well, see,
but a lot more than Tyrus.
More so than Tyrus. Yeah, I put he's always on my list of forgotten NWA champions. Him, AJ, Rhino, Raven, all former NWA heavyweight champions. My return of the year, curiously, not CM Punk. Even though we were all hoping against hope that, hoping for the best that he would show up in Chicago. As soon as Punk was gone, and earlier this year in April, and we knew that Survivor Series this year was going to be in Chicago. It's like, well, come on, WWE can't drop the ball here, and they did. But my return of the year, debut of the year, Dan, with absolutely no fanfare, he had no music, no ring entrance, didn't even get to walk down the ramp. My debut of the year, Nick Aldis.
Yeah.
So happy to see him.
Yeah. I'll give you that one. I like his moment last week. Kevin Owens did break him. Didn't almost. He broke him. And that man never breaks.
No.
And he lost it there, which was very funny to me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if I seem distracted. I'm keeping an eye on
AEW Dynamite.
Yes. Sorry.
As am I.
I don't know what the name of these shows
are. It really got off to it got off to a really bad start because of first of all, this Fakakta tournament, which makes no sense. Yes. That was a really needless bump that thankfully ended well, but could have ended badly, especially when he talked about women in AEW.
He's a moron.
But Moxley winning was the completely wrong decision.
Absolutely.
Especially when the hottest guy you have in the company, the one with the most momentum, the one that the fans are behind more than anyone else, is Swerve.
Yeah, but he's black though. Tony won't put him on.
Oh, Tony won't do anything that's good for business, even the people that aren't black, like
calls him like I sees him.
Like Mark Briscoe, like Ricky Starks.
Oh, yeah, don't even get me. Hey, but you know who's back? Sammy Guevara.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that great?
Mm-hmm.
You know who's also back? Sting and Darby the Nonce Allen. Everything's fine. Which is why I'm also keeping track of this show, because I saw something a couple weeks ago, and tonight, if it happens, I'm gonna lose my shit, and I want to see it live, quite frankly.
And what is that?
Well, if it happens,
I'm
not giving the man a name drop unless I have to.
Gotcha.
And when I start, you'll understand. But so far, nothing. And we'll see. It's a man I have a huge personal problem.
I understand.
And if that should give you a clue.
Gotcha.
So we'll see. I'm watching close.
Yeah. Your male wrestler of the year is whom?
Wow. You have to come back to me on that one. I don't know.
Okay. I'll give you mine. With everybody,
Yeah, I think I know where you're going with it, but yeah, go ahead. You first.
with everybody saying, he single-handedly got himself over, and he stayed over. And even with the returns of Randy Orton, who we haven't mentioned, and CM Punk, which we have, his popularity has not gone down one bit, which is impressive. But for a guy like that, he's must-see TV. He's my male star of the year. MJF would have been easy. I just think turning him face wasn't a mistake, but the whole thing with Adam Cole didn't really help him out.
Nah, it was a mistake.
At all. Punk is another easy choice. Still, the uncrowned, the AEW World Champion. He has never been defeated for that. Well, Cody Rhodes is who the ESPN picked as their wrestler of the year. But LA Knight with honorable mention to the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion of all time, Gunther. Those are my wrestlers of the year. He just had a baby.
Well, Jenny just had a baby, his wife.
Oh, congratulations,
Gunther.
Yeah. So Walter Gunther, my 1A of my wrestlers of the year. It's LA Knight and Gunther.
I'll say LA Knight.
Okay.
I'll just say it. Ashton said Chris Jericho. I couldn't say that with a straight face. Yeah. Who could?
Maybe
no, LA Knight. And I think, and I'll be honest, I think it was more so driven by the fact that all I see. Well, that's not true. Majority of people absolutely support LA Knight, along with myself, and I know you don't have anything against him, and but I do see the outside of people going, he's just like The Rock, he's just like this, he's just like the wrestling.
Yeah.
Wrestling. Jesus Christ, this 8-man match they just made. Wrestling is an ever cycle of not repetitiveness, because I don't mean that in a negative way, of recycling something.
Yeah. And
we've talked about this before. LA Knight is just doing it the best.
Yes.
That's it.
And LA Knight is just the evolution from a Rock that came from a Dusty Rhodes, that came from a superstar Billy Graham, that came from a Buddy Rogers, that Ric Flair improved upon. Everything is just that's how it goes. So obviously he's not copying them. And who could?
He's just taken what he's learned, like wrestlers in the past,
and
applying that to what he has become, which is a hybrid of the stuff that came before him, and will set the tone for things that will go after him. And not only that, he's great in the ring. He's phenomenal on the mic, like we mentioned. For years, the two best on the mics is going to be a fight between MJF and LA Knight.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
And MJF is just exactly what Roddy Piper was 30 years ago. And he's taken, like you just said, what Roddy Piper said and how he said it, and applying it to today's. He's less hyperactive, but Piper's which is a good thing. But MJF's interviews are, comparing LA Knight to Rock, or saying he's a Rock ripoff, is just saying MJF is doing the same with Piper. he is this century's Roddy Piper.
He was the next logical step in that
Yes.
type of heel. And I'll say heel, and I'll double down saying, I don't give a crap about him when he's face. I don't care. No disrespect to MJF. It is not on him. He's a bad guy. He's the best as a bad guy. He cuts heel promos. There's no heel promos anymore. Beg to differ. That's what I want to see him. Now, I'm still watching his matches because, they're good. He's good. But I need him as a bad guy.
Yeah. Well, see, AEW is such a purgatory because the most popular wrestlers there are the heels. They get they get a bigger reactions than your babyface. Swerve supposed to be your heel, but he gets a bigger reaction than a Moxley who's supposed to be your face. And so people don't want to see him lose, but he's supposed to be your bad guy. And now the crowd wants the supposed heel to win, and they try to spin it like MJF. Well, he's our scumbag. Well, no, he's not even a scumbag anymore. He doesn't even cheat to win. As when you're a heel who turns face, you keep the heel persona. You still cheat to win. And when Tate DiBiase became the biggest heel in the business before he got to the WWE, when he had the loaded glove, when he turned face and he was getting the bad guys were getting the better of him, he pulled out the loaded glove, knocked the heel out. Referee didn't see it. Place went apeshit. And there it is. FTR right there. ESPN Pro Wrestling Illustrated. Are they on television though?
Nope.
F no.
Or you can also say that that's how good they are, is they haven't been on TV in a while. And everybody's like, no, they're the best.
Yeah.
Like, well, they've just taken a month off with pay.
But aren't the current
the gun?
But the current AEW Tag Team Champions aren't even on TV every week. Funny how when the Young Bucks were the World AEW Tag Team Champions, they were on TV every single week. But every team that's not the Young Bucks, when they're the AEW Tag Team Champions, are never on TV. Why do you suppose that is?
I don't know. I don't know. Our moment of truth is coming up here.
The moment of truth is coming up here. So
unless they swerve us. And it's not tonight. And I swear to God.
So it's the Marceau twins?
Hey, Mark Madden.
Well, do you swerve when you drive, though? If this is indeed a swerve?
I hope not.
Okay, so fans...
No. I'm worried because it's on the overrun that they're not actually going to reveal who it is.
Okay.
Well, in fact, I expect them to go, no, watch the pay-per-view, jerk off. And
Fans, here we are with we're at 10 o'clock.
I was gonna say we're at the overrun. Tape machines are rolling.
While and fans, if you're watching this on HIAC Talk Radio, our podcast, we're currently watching in live time the AEW Dynamite, the Ring of Honor World Tag Team title defense between one half of the ROH Tag Team Champions, MJF, Maxwell Jacob Friedman, and his partner, Samoa Joe, while they take on two members of the Devil's Rejects.
No, they would have shot people already. It's just the Devil's Men.
The Devil's Men, okay.
Stupid.
And out comes Joe.
Hold on, we're gonna... I knew it. Did you get to it?
I just saw.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Okay, that's not what I was going to freak out about, by the way. I had no idea that was going to happen, and it didn't occur to me until you Bobby Heenan'd it and said, or is he? And I was like, fucking Samoa Joe's going to turn on MJF. I knew it. Think of that. I knew it as being sarcastic. So is he the devil the whole time? Is that?
Yeah, but whose side is he on?
Yeah, but who's? Yeah, you totally sold that like brain.
Well, no, I had no idea. I had no idea. Seriously, I had no idea.
So the rumor is that one of the Devil's men is going to be Sammy Callahan.
Okay. Oh God, no. Good God, no.
That's why I was waiting. Like, if that's what's happening, I want you to see my pure anger live. And if that's what ends up happening, oh, Tony Khan, you piece of shit. You just wait. You just wait. Well, we
No.
got a better ending tonight. Samoa Joe turning on MJF. And
Yeah,
listen,
but
at least one of my favorite heels turned heel again.
yeah, well, that's
Jesus.
what a heel should be and what a heel should do. It still begs the question: who is our current Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions, though?
I guess that's getting revealed tomorrow. Is the show tomorrow or
Saturday. Saturday. Or
Tomorrow's not today. It's not Friday today.
no, today it's still Wednesday all day.
Oh,
And don't forget, we also have a AEW show Friday.
oh, Christ.
Yeah, we have a Rampage to not watch on Friday.
Well, before I get more sad, will you please?
Yeah.
The last Professor Historian of the Year. Take us away, Dad. Daddy.
Oh, gentlemen and ladies, it has been quite the year of our Lord 2023. We've gone over our favorite wrestlers, female and male, tag teams, and breakout returns, debuts of this year and the present, and the amazing news that the WWE could be up to one house show per week. Where what's made this segment so enjoyable is the fact that house shows were something that happened every single day of the week and twice on Sunday for an entire year, for year after year after year after year. And it was the lifeblood of the sport that we love and talk about constantly. The reason why you're on this podcast in the first place is because of your love for professional wrestling. Mine too. So much so that I spent the last 50 years watching, obsessing, researching, and giving it back to you, our HIAC Talk Radio audience, the history that I love so much and I want to share with you for the last time in 2023. This is the Wrestling Historian, and I want to take a special look at one of the things that made wrestling what it was, and one of the big money days of the year was holidays. Holidays were a day where you would spend your Thanksgiving in the afternoon with your family, eat early, because that night you had to go right to the Coliseum, the Omni in Atlanta, the Reunion Arena in Texas, the Charlotte Coliseum, because there was holiday spectaculars. None bigger so than Christmas Day. Christmas Day, there was always a big money day in professional wrestling. Unheard of now, especially with new head Triple H giving all of his superstars off for the last week of December. So Christmas shows are a thing of the past. But when they weren't, they were big, big box office. And every year, the NWA champion, no matter who it was, would spend their Christmases in Dallas. You see the shirt I'm wearing? Bad Street USA. I saw Iron Claw again today. Please go see it, even if you're not a wrestling fan, just because it's a very well done movie. I saw it first time as a hardcore wrestling fan. This time I saw it strictly as a moviegoer and a movie lover, and I enjoyed it both times, cried both times, but happy tears at the end. But Christmas Day in wrestling history, 1978, they got 16,000 people at the Superdome, paying $78,000 for a $78,000 gate. That would be $196,000 in today's money. And that was when they crowned new Mid-South North American Tag Team Champions, the team of Ernie Ladd and Stan Hansen. In the finals, lost to the team of Andre the Giant and Dusty Rhodes. Yeah, and there was a great shot of those two holding the World Tag Team, the only tag team championship that Andre the Giant had ever held at that time. He and Dusty were the tag team North American tag team champions, and you see Andre wearing the belt upside down. But that was Christmas Day, 1978. And of course, we can't talk about Christmas Day shows without mentioning Christmas Day, 1982, the Reunion Arena, Dallas, Texas, 18,000 fans. That was the record in Texas, in the state of Texas that day, for a gate in 1982 to see the World Six-Man Tag Team Championship crown, the first ever Six-Man Tag Team Championship crown. The team of Tom Steele, Tom and Mike Sharp, that Iron Mike Sharp, lost to the team of Terry Gordy, Michael Hayes, and David Von Erich. Buddy Roberts couldn't make the show, so David Von Erich, seeing that the Freebirds were going to be outnumbered 2-3, the Freebirds came in as faces, and David Von Erich, because their brother Buddy Roberts couldn't be there, he said, I know what it's like not to have my brother, so just for this one night, I'm going to fill in for their brother, and I'm going to team up with the Freebirds. So David Von Erich scored the pin, and Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy were celebrating like they did all the work, and they were awarded the first six-man tag team championship. After the bout, David Von Erich said, guys, I appreciate it, but Buddy Roberts is your partner, so I'm going to give up my third of the World Six-Man Championship, and Buddy can have it when he gets here. And big round of applause. Terry Gordy and Michael Hayes both hugged David Von Erich. The Freebirds are over like Rover. They're such great big baby faces there. The fans love them. And more so because later on that night, Michael Hayes was going to be the special guest referee in case, so there was no shenanigans for the NWA World title match between NWA champion Ric Flair and Kerry Von Erich. Referee was David Manning, but Michael Hayes was there to make sure there would be no cheating and called right down the middle. And we talked about it ad nauseum. Michael Hayes and got involved, and Kerry Von Erich wouldn't take the pin after Michael Hayes knocked out Ric Flair, and Kerry said he wouldn't do it. Michael Hayes says, to hell with you. Terry Gordy's outside, said, come on, Michael, let's go. Michael Hayes leaves the cage. Kerry Von Erich goes back, goes after him to plead his case. Ric Flair knees Kerry Von Erich in the back. Kerry Von Erich knocks it into Michael Hayes. All Terry Gordy sees is Kerry Von Erich throwing Michael Hayes out of the cage. Well, that's all he could stand. He can't stand no more. And he takes the cage door and with all his might swings it, slams the door shut on Kerry Von Erich. Terry Gordy falls down because of the weight, because he couldn't keep his balance. And he created the single most repeated spot in the history of professional wrestling and the most famous spot in cage match history, slamming the door on the opponent. Ric Flair would retain the NWA Heavyweight Championship, and the Von Erich versus the Freebirds feud was underway. Christmas Day, 1982.
It's all the Von Erich's fault. All they had to do was not try to leave the ring.
Yeah, all Kerry had to do was pin Ric Flair after Michael Hayes just knocked him out.
Hey, you stupid bastard.
He didn't want to do that.
God.
the very next year, Christmas 1983, David Von Erich would pin Ric Flair in Christmas Day Star Wars, and setting up their eventual bout, which would be later on in 84. David Von Erich versus Ric Flair at Texas Stadium. A match that never took place. Following year in 85, they still did 19,000 people at Christmas Day. Kevin Von Erich versus Ric Flair. And Mike and Kevin also teamed up to defeat Buddy Roberts and Michael Hayes. The Freebird feud still going 3 years later. This time involving Mike. But to see how far they've fallen, Dan, the apex was in 84 and 85. They drew 19,000 people Christmas Day to Reunion Arena. By 1987, only 3 years later, they drew only 4,000 people to the Reunion Arena for the world-class heavyweight champion Alex Perez versus Kerry Von Erich. This was the bout where Fritz Von Erich got involved and had a heart attack. And it was so realistic. It was carried by the legitimate news in Dallas and in Dallas-Fort Worth. And most of the media reported on it. It was a big deal in professional wrestling. The fact that it was actually shown on Pro Wrestling USA back in 1987. There was a show hosted by Gordon Soley that, kind of like what the wrestling news is now, they reported on all professional wrestling with no bias, no anything, just reporting the news. So they would report on WWF, on the NWA, on the AWA. And in world class, the top story on Pro Wrestling USA was the heart attack that Fritz Von Erich suffered in the ring, trying to protect his son. And for the next several weeks, Fritz's condition would get better or worse depending on how well the house shows were drawing.
Sorry. Didn't know I even opened that window.
Yeah. And if you see Iron Claw...
That's why he had a heart attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, we talked earlier in this broadcast about Lance Von Erich, why he was brought in to... and the story behind he was Ricky Vaughn in Pacific Northwest. He was a Pacific Northwest heavyweight champion, then came to Texas to help out his cousins because Mike Von Erich was hurt, and they needed and what I didn't know was Ricky Vaughn, Lance Von Erich was already known in and around Texas. So everyone who knew Texas or grew up around Texas or watched wrestling there knew he wasn't a Von Erich. It would be like, that's a good example. We were talking about our favorite morning radio show. Intern, if we find out the intern Kyle is Kyle McElwain, he's been Nick's cousin this whole time. Meanwhile, everyone who knows Kyle knows that they aren't related at all. And it helped hasten the demise of world class because it's one thing, and that Fritz turned off a lot of people. He almost to exploiting his son's deaths to get box office, to get sympathy. But now you're bringing in a fake Von Erich, and Kevin and Kerry were both vehemently against it. But it's like, now you think we're stupid? And then when Lance
goes, yeah, I do think you're kind of stupid.
And when Lance left, when he asked for a raise, then he was buried. Fritz, disowned him, and he wanted the fans to boo him. And the fans were like, "Well, you're the one who forced him on us in the first place. We didn't want him to begin with, and now you want us to boo him."
Make up your mind, Fritz.
Yeah, I was watching this with my best friend Nancy and Holt McElhenney, who plays Fritz Von Erich. Every time he was on screen, as we got later in the movie and we saw how he treated his sons, she was like, "I hate you." She said this out loud in the theater. "I hate you." Every
He's
time
a
he
piece
said
of
something.
He was a fucking piece of shit. Like, sorry.
I'm not sorry,
Like,
not sorry.
There's no getting around that. He was absolutely terrible to his family.
Yes,
He was terrible. He was terrible as a boss.
that is true.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
Yeah, he wasn't a nice guy, and you saw in the trailer, and those of you who didn't, he ranked his sons. He'd say out loud, "Well, Carrie's my favorite, and then it's David, and then it's Kevin, and then it's Mike." And the ranking can change. Anybody can move up.
Asshole.
Yeah, but this is what a father says to his sons. So that was all that happens on Christmas. Yesterday, you might have seen, but it was a big deal if you follow anything on wrestling on social media. It was 40 years ago yesterday. 40 years. December 26th, 1983, Madison Square Garden. And people the Garden was sold out this past weekend for Punk. There was 24,592 people at Madison Square Garden on December 26, 1983, to see Bob Backlund lose the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship to the Iron Sheik. The camel clutch. Bob Backlund did not submit, but his manager, Arnold Skaaland, threw in the towel. And the Iron Sheik, much to the surprise, and it was like, if you watch the tape, nobody believed. It was quiet. No one believed this was happening. I said, okay, well, Sheik won, but he's not the champion. But then a very young Howard Finkel said, and knew.
Yeah, no, that's how the match works, folks.
Yeah. Freddie Blassie running around the ring, ecstatic. He had never, ever managed a world champion before.
And
I should say,
never happy.
Yeah. Fred Blassie was a world champion wrestler himself, but never managed a world champion. Tried like hell for many years to defeat Bruno. He couldn't do it. But Fred Blassie, or should I say Ayatollah Blassie, managed the Iron Sheik to his first and only World Heavyweight Championship. And Freddie loved the heat. He loved being a part of the Iranian heel. Sheik, one of the greatest foreign heels of all time, because he was a legitimate foreign heel, unlike Fritz von Erich, who some say the von Erich curse was because he played a Nazi so well when he was a heel wrestler. Being Fritz von Erich from Munich, Germany, not Joe Atkinson from Buffalo, New York. But
he's from New York.
He's born in Buffalo, New York. Yeah.
Son of a bitch. Everything is fake about them. No, I'm kidding.
He moved to Texas in his 20s, and that's where he set up his home there. But yeah, it's originally from
stay there.
Originally from New York. But Khosrow Vaziri, though, born and raised in Iran, Olympic wrestler, Greco-Roman champion, and at 40 years old was the Worldwide Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion 40 years ago this week.
Okay, we get it. 40 years ago. I get it. I'm 40.
But I had 25,000 people at Madison Square Garden to see that title change. Wheels were already in place. Hulk Hogan had been signed to the WWE the beginning of this month of December of 1983. So plans were already in motion for the title change to take place. But the Sheik, for at least 3 weeks, was the World Wrestling Federation heavyweight champion, and that cemented his legacy. And the legend of the Iron Sheik. It's amazing. It grew since then, but he was the world heavyweight champion. And no one could ever take that away from him. And that, gentlemen and ladies, is a wrestling historian.
And I just want to say to Ash and everyone else who's GM Spectre and a lot of new faces this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for still watching HIAC Talk Radio. Appreciate it. Yeah, Ash, every time I mention Ric Flair, I kind of
and
we mentioned Hogan, Flair, I'm just like, I know, but they were everywhere. We can't Benoit them.
Yeah.
But
and a quick
shit on them every time. Sorry, go
ahead. Yeah, a quick aside too. I don't know why the person who plays Ric Flair in Iron Claw gets so much heat. I guess people think that there's other better Ric Flair imitators out there, but it's a movie, and it's not for wrestling fans. It's for moviegoers, the people that know the name Ric Flair. It's just a person playing him, and because he doesn't sound like, act like, do all the Flair mannerisms that we know now, because the Ric Flair you know now is turned up to 11 at all times, even at 78. But the Ric Flair in 1983, where this movie's taking place, was a different Ric Flair, and the guy playing him is an actor. So I don't know why it's
yeah, Ash, it's a movie not about Ric Flair. There you go. Yes, exactly. Just like I said earlier, it's a movie not about Lance Von fucking Eric, guys.
No.
Christ. No. And if MJF was good, they would have kept the season.
I will say this though, for those of you who have not seen Iron Claw, watch Iron Claw, and if you have it on DVR, it's available on YouTube. Watch the Dark Side of the Ring episode of the Von Erichs right after that. It's a perfect companion.
Yeah. Get real depressed.
It's not even real depressed, because when you see Iron Claw, Dan, and we're gonna guess what? When you do see it, we're gonna talk about the movie all over again. Because now, yes, because I want to get your take on it. Before we go, and I know you're tired, but I just want to get your opinion, because it's one of the other news items that dropped earlier this week. I mentioned that Triple H is now in charge of WWE Creative. He's also in charge of the Hall of Fame.
Oh, good. Burn it down. Oh, wait, it's not a real building? Never mind.
No. But because he is, and because he's not Vince, and it's always been completely arbitrary, but I made it clear who I think should be in. But now that Triple H is in charge, who do you think?
China.
Okay.
If you motherfucker don't put China in your first chance you get, I don't know what we're doing here. I don't even care if it's to save face, like I think she deserved it. You know, unlike Vince, Triple H only screwed over one woman without her consent, and it wasn't physically, it was mentally, which one would argue is just as bad. Or still bad. So make it right, dude. Put her in. Put her in the pioneering wing. Because, we can always debate her wrestling ability. Not about that. It's clearly not about that. Coco, beware. Sorry, Coco. I know you'd agree with me, Craig, but
I do agree with you.
He hasn't done anything to me, but just saying.
No, the fact that Coco Beware is in any Hall of Fame, but Ivan Koloff is not, will always bother me. And the fact that Sonny is in, but China is not.
Yeah. Sonny, who also did porn and is a Nazi.
Yeah. And it's currently
serving the Hall of Fame.
Yes, and the same Sonny that's currently serving 17 years in jail.
Well, no, I didn't know it was 17 years. Damn.
Yes.
No, that's okay though. There's murderers in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
No, the first thing he should do is put China in. No question. And it should have been 10 years ago.
Yes.
It should have been before she died, folks.
Yes. Well, she could have appreciated it. She could have accepted it. I brought out a whole list of I wanted to get the pioneers who should have been in a long time first, and then work my way up to China. So go ahead.
We'll do that in 2 weeks when we come back. We got to keep that list.
Got it.
We'll work on a list in the chat, and then we'll present a list. This is Triple H First Ballot Hall of Fame in 2 weeks on HIAC Talk Radio. Craig. Oh, you can find me at DanLow83 on all social media platforms. Craig, where can we follow you?
You can follow me on Facebook, on the formerly Twitter X, on Instagram, on Threads, on TokTik, at the same name on all of those platforms. Craig Ligons, CraigLigeons.
Yes. And as I said, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we will present to you. Hey, Paul, put these people in the Hall of Fame episode. For Craig Ligons, the absentee, Derek, Omega Squad, and the rest. Thank you, everyone, for 2023. This is a year I'd rather forget. So let's move on. Happy New Year. And always keep it on the paper.